You're listening to the All Systems Go podcast, the show that teaches you everything you need to know to put your business on autopilot. Learn how to deploy automated marketing and sales systems in your business the right way with your host, the professor of automation himself and founder of Automation Bridge, Chris Davis.
Welcome to the All Systems Go podcast. I'm your host, Chris L. Davis, founder of Automation Bridge, an online publication for small business automation. And in this episode, I'm going to discuss something that may seem a bit eccentric, maybe the title at least, but bear with me. And that is the process of babysitting your automations. What does that mean and why should you do it? Just let me say this. For every automated process, a babysitter is required. Okay, but before I get ahead of myself, before we jump in, let me first say, if you are new to the podcast, first off, welcome. I'm glad to have you. If you have not subscribed or left a 5-star rating, please do so. We are available in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere where you can subscribe to a podcast. The All Systems Go podcast is there. If this is your first time, I will be grateful if you listen to this episode in its entirety. And then right after you go subscribe and leave a rating, I would greatly appreciate it. And I want to give a shout out to Daryl. He left a rating that says a marketing automation genius. He says, Chris brings a method of thinking about marketing automation that is simple yet powerful. I've been leveraging marketing automation since 2002. I first started listening to his previous show. I knew I'd found a new mentor in marketing automation. We all know that technology should simplify our lives and not complicate it. Chris gets this and communicates it in a way that makes it easy to understand and implement. He's a genius, and I'm glad he's no longer behind the scenes and helping SMBs leverage marketing automation to scale their businesses. Daryl, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. And listen, I greatly appreciate you who's listening right now that is about to go leave that 5-star rating as well. So to start this episode off, I like to just throw the phrase out that a lot of you have probably heard and are very, very familiar with. And it's the notorious phase. I call it phrase, a notorious phrase for the reasons you'll find out in this episode, but it's set it and forget it. Right. And it's usually used in its innocence. I'll defend it. It's used to speak to the power of automation, right? The idea that you can do something and not have to keep doing it and results will continue to roll in. Okay. I understand where it came from. And in fact, that's what intrigued me to the automation space. It's like, oh, wow, set it and forget it. I'm used to clocking in. If you don't clock in, you don't get paid. How does that work? Right. How do you set it and forget it? And I get it. It comes from that whole do it once and then don't have to lift a finger ever again. Right. And here's the truth. That's the half truth. OK, the truth is that's the half truth. And if I'm honest, it's not even the half truth. It's like a fraction of a truth. And growing up, what I was taught was a half truth is a whole lie. So I guess what I'm saying to you is you've been lied to. You have been lied to, because the truth is there is no automation. There is no automated process that you can put in place that does not require your immediate attention the minute you hit publish. The minute, okay? What I mean is you better not build out an automation, hit publish, hit go, whatever the button says, and then walk away, wipe your hands like, oh, my job's done, just ready for the results to roll in. You better not. Because that's where my update to this term comes from. Set it and forget it, and you will regret it. And that is true for most people because they miss this step. What is this step? You need to babysit that automated process. Every new automated process requires It requires a babysitter. And I'm using the term babysitter because when I think of a newly automated process, I look at it like a baby, and if we look at its parallel in the real world, there's no way that you would leave your newborn baby to themselves. No way. Some of you wouldn't leave your grown children to themselves. They're 16, 17. You still don't trust them, right? But you wouldn't do that, right? What you would do is you will watch them and ensure that you gave them the proper care until they were grown and can fend for themselves, right? That's how you would treat a baby. I'm talking about real life here. That's how you would treat a baby. Well, newly automated processes are the same way. Okay. They require attention until they don't. So let me say that again so you can get that in your mind. Newly automated processes require attention until they don't. So there is no time frame. There is no, hey, watch your automations for 2 months. Watch your tools for 2 weeks and then you're good. No, they require attention until they don't. Okay, until they're all grown up. And I'm using grown up in air quotes because though there are parallels between the real world and, this technical world that I'm making this connection to, this analogy, I'm using this analogy to connect it to. But there is a difference because people, if you think about it, people grow up in time. Nothing you could do over time, you're going to grow up. Automated processes do not grow over time. I've seen some established businesses with some pretty terrible and outdated automated processes. They just don't have the acumen and the know-how to update them in a way that doesn't break, profitability. Right. But automations don't grow up in time. Automated processes grow up with contacts. And what I mean by that is specifically when I say contact, I'm talking about contact throughput. Contact throughput is the amount of contacts that have gone through your process. And that is going to determine how it's working and how well it's working. Okay, contact throughput is what matures in automation. And here's what's happening. Have you ever had a balloon and you looked at it and you said, oh, well, this balloon is good. We could blow this up, tie it up, and do whatever we need to do with it. And then you start to pour water in that balloon. And then before you know it, little microscopic holes that you could not see are now squirting out water. And you're looking like, oh, my goodness, this is not going to work. I need to get a new balloon. That is what contacts do to an automation. OK, when you build out an automation, and when I say automation, everybody, remember, this is the All Systems Go podcast. Where we're talking about marketing automation for the marketing experts. OK, so when I say the term automation, I'm talking about automating processes in your marketing. And we even talk about sales in other areas on the podcast. But specifically, that's what it is, marketing automation. OK, so when you build out these automations, you need contacts to flow through to expose if there's any microscopic holes in your process. And just let me tell you, there are. I am what I would consider a very advanced, not even advanced, a very advanced automation builder. Meaning I can build out an automated process in pretty much any tool. If you give me a email marketing or marketing automation platform, Zapier and Airtable. With those three tools, I haven't met a process I can't automate. Now, granted, some tools make it a lot easier where I don't need like Zapier and Airtable and perhaps even Google Sheets. Some tools make that easier. So I always go towards those tools where I don't have to, do too much integration. But at the end of the day, when I look at myself, there's not a process I can't automate with at least those three tools. And most of the time, that's all I need. Right. So I know what I'm doing. I do map my stuff out. I create my flow charts, my documentation. I do all of that before I build a single automation. And guess what? I still build the automation and overlook something. It's just what it is. Remember when we talked about how marketing is so exhilarating and exhausting because there's so many considerations that you have to take in. There's just no way. There's no way to be perfect. Like it's so when I'm building an automation, I'm not in my head. I don't even have this is going to work. Let me send some people through it so I can see what I'm missing. Right. So when people start flowing through, what do those holes, like we talked about that balloon and water squirting through those microscopic holes. What are some of those holes that are exposed when people start flowing through your automations? Broken links. Hey, this link isn't working. Right. You forgot to add pre-header text, misspelling in the headline and or the body. You're using a merge tag that the context field isn't populating because you never collected that data, right? Your logic and branching is off. People are going down the wrong path. It should be going down the other, right? Your link is sending them to the wrong place. Images are too big or not displaying, right? Like these are all holes that we don't know until people go through them. Now there is a place for testing. Right. You can test your own stuff and get that much closer to quote unquote perfection, or I should say production. Let's just talk about production, not perfection. You could test your own stuff, but it still is not going to expose all of the holes. It's just not. So we have to be willing as smart digital marketers who are focused on automating their marketing. You have to be willing to embrace. You're going to set this up and it's not going to work fully the first time. I say it all the time. Your first time's your worst time. I don't know where in life that is not true. And some of you are like, look, my first time was great. I hit it out the park. You may have done that with respect to the context and the intelligence you had at that time. But you keep doing that thing. You're going to get better. And at some point, you're going to look back and be like, I cannot believe that's what I was doing. Right. Just think of all of your first times. Right. It's the worst, especially if you're somebody who's committed to growth. That is actually a statement of endearment when they say the first time is your worst time, because I know you get better over time because you're committed to growing. OK, so consultants, this is a good time for you to get in your head. I need to set that expectation with my client. Hey, look, we're going to put this in place and then we need to send some contacts through this to make sure it's all tidied up. Once we, get some basic contacts through it, the first few days or so, we should be ready for production. It's just an expectation that you set, because otherwise they're going to be thinking like it's ready. Hey, go. Hey, why are people not going to the right page, or why this, why that? Right. In marketing, I've learned when I was younger in marketing, I was always kind of scared when stuff didn't work or when results weren't what was anticipated. Right. But then I learned there is no mistake in marketing. And when I say mistake, as long as you can explain what happened, why it happened, and have an adjustment, there's nothing that can happen to you in marketing that you can't turn around and it work for your benefit. You say, hey, look, we sent all this traffic to this landing page and we only got X amount of leads. That may look like a mistake, but what did you just learn? Well, that landing page structure is terrible. Never use that again. Let's take everything that we did here and do the opposite. Right. Now, granted, it takes a different level of confidence and a perspective, but I'm just saying that's, as a marketer, that's where you will get. I'm not afraid of any conversation. Somebody can come to me right now. Hey, Chris, that automation that you put in place, it's just not working. And I don't go into defense mode like, oh, wait a minute, my stuff always works. Right. I'm like, well, tell me what's happening. What is the traffic that you're driving? Oh, well, it looks like the audience is a little different than from the audience that we originally built this for. So we're going to need to update the positioning of the landing page and the copy. Right. Maybe we need to change some colors because now you're targeting women. And this one was really built for children who were young males. Right. So I'm always in investigation mode to figure out, OK, why isn't it working? I want it not to work. I really do. because it shows me, it gives me an opportunity to learn something that, oh, I hadn't taken that into account. And just let me know there is infinity I haven't taken that into account. This is why you cannot build a perfect automation the first time, or a production ready automation the first time. Okay, so that's off the table, everybody. CEOs, you're listening to this and you're like, okay, yeah, let me shape my expectation. And maybe that will tame some of my frustration with my consultant. Right? You're getting the insight on what it takes so you can have the right expectation and you can hire accordingly. Okay, so all of these issues, we'll say, are exposed by contacts flowing through your newly built automation. So remember, you have to watch it. Can you imagine if you had a broken link and you just turned it on and left? Especially if you're running advertising and you're paying. I mean, you're paying for all leads. You're either paying with time or, dollars or both. So you're always paying. So you don't want to waste that. You want to watch that automation. When I was at Lead Pages and we would turn marketing live, you listen, if it was 10 o'clock at night and you're hitting the live button, well, guess you're going to be up till about 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock 1, because remember, the contact throughput is what matures the automation. And I'm not just talking about email. I'm talking about landing pages, like anything that your sales page, anything that is required for your marketing and sales to be automated online. Right. So we would hit the live button and you're not going anywhere. You're watching it. I'm refreshing the Lead Pages landing page to make sure that the traffic is correct. I'm making sure the leads are flowing in, added to the right list, or given the appropriate tag, right? Like I'm looking at all of is my decision diamond configured correctly? Is my if else logic right? Are they flowing down the right paths? Are they waiting where they should be waiting? Are they stuck at a goal? I'm looking at all of this stuff the minute it goes live. And it's not until I can verify at a preliminary state that everything is functioning that I can fall back and say, okay, I'll check tomorrow. But you see, I did not say I'll forget it. The contacts flowing through it should mature it. Now, if you're in a business where you don't have a lot of contact throughput, well, it's going to take longer for your automations to mature, which means you're just going to be watching them longer. But if you can generate, a good 1,000 or more leads in that month, your automation should be mature by the end of that month. 1,000 leads should expose anything, that's going on in automation. Okay, so if you need kind of like a barometer, hey, what do I tell my consultant? The traffic we need to generate. Consultants, hey, what expectation do I need to shape with the CEO to know? Hey, look, we need at least 1,000 people before we could say this one's good to go. That's a safe one. I've done it with less, but I don't want to use my experience and project it onto you all. Use 1,000. It's a good barometer, right? So I'm talking about the process of growing up your automation so you really can forget it, right? And I'm using air quotes like crazy on this episode. So forget it is in air quotes because you never really forget it. The word forget is really, I don't have to check on it as often, which is, it's an important differentiator because again, that sets the expectation that I'm always going to be monitoring this thing in some way. Tools do fail you, everybody, right? They break down, you get the notification, hey, we're going over a systems update, so you can never really forget it. It just really means you don't have to check on it every day. You don't have to stay up late looking at the throughput. There are some automations for me I haven't checked in maybe 6 months, but these are years old. I mean, you talk about the amount of contacts that have gone through these automations. I mean, they're rock solid. Right? I still check them though. Don't you think for 1 minute I don't check them. It may be a little random, but I'm checking them at least quarterly, So anyway, the importance of all of this that we're talking about is to have a clear understanding of how you achieve automated marketing. That's really the point here. I don't want you to subscribe to this thought that I could just set it and forget it, because that is so dangerous as a consultant, because you're potentially positioning businesses to fail. Okay, that's the power you have as a consultant. CEOs, if you don't understand this, you're going in to hiring a consultant with the wrong considerations, the wrong expectations, and that's bound to lead to a whole lot of frustration. Okay? So we need to understand this, and it's in how you achieve automated marketing is, of course, putting it into play and watching over it. But you're not going to do it. What I see a lot of people do is you're not going to download someone else's template, activate it, sit back and wait for the results to roll in. It's not going to happen. Listen, I love templates. I'm going to talk about in a minute in this episode what's better than a template. I will tell you that. I am a fan of templates, by the way. The only problem that I have with templates is it is not always clear the considerations the person who created the template was using. So even though it may achieve the result that you're looking for, they may have had a different set of considerations that chose them to create the template a certain way that may not work for you. That's my only thing about against templates. And oftentimes I find myself modifying the templates to the point where it's just like, Chris, you should have started from scratch. But what I use templates for often is to just not start from that blank canvas. If I don't know what I want, the template at least serves as this is not what I want. Right? It gets me closer sooner, but you're not going to be able to download a template, activate it, and just be good. Okay. You have to clarify the process. You've heard this. Clarify the process, integrate technology, then watch over it carefully to get it ready for massive traffic. And that's what I'm calling production. Okay. This process, the contact throughput and just watching everything, it's also going to test your tool. It's one of the reasons when I say it tests your tool, you see how your tools perform. What kind of data they send out? Is the integration immediate? Is it like 10 to 15 minute delay? This is why I didn't like Entreport. And when I say I should say I don't. It's not didn't. It's not past tense. It's current. A couple months ago, I tested out Entreport to say, hey, look, can I migrate to this? Right? I like to test all platforms and just say, hey, if I had to, could I use this tool? So I did that test with Entreport, and it was just too slow. Some of the things when I'm sending a contact through a workflow, I can't even remember I think they're called workflow. They may be called campaigns in Entreport, whatever, the automation maps that they're used or the flow charts I think they are campaigns. Anyways, it doesn't matter. But when they go through and go to a certain action, it could take 5 to 15 minutes to see the result display on the contact record. So if I'm sitting up here trying to test throughput of 50s, 100 to 200, I don't have time to sit around and wait because the event happened, right? They either got the wrong link or not. I don't know it until 5 or 10 minutes later after it reports it, whereas in other platforms, it's instantaneous. Infusionsoft, I will give Infusionsoft this. They are the easiest platform I've been able to use to test an entire campaign or automation, right? Because what Infusionsoft will do is it'll show on the contact record what the contact has done, and it will also show you the steps that are queued up and when they'll take place. So it's like they'll receive email 2 on Wednesday, email 3 on Friday. Like, it's beautiful. I love it. And I've often toyed around with the idea of an automation simulator. Maybe I'm giving a business idea away, but could you imagine the day where you could build an automation and then maybe there's this third party simulator that sends fake contacts through, and then it provides a report of each contact. So you could set and say, hey, I want to emulate a contact with this tag, emulate a contact with this information, and emulate a contact with that information. Hit start. It sends those contacts through, right? Or when I say it sends them through, it somehow emulates the path of the platform and just produces a result and says, hey, your contact would have received this email here, this tag, this custom field update, and achieve this goal, right? I mean, that would be beautiful. So the closest I've been able to get to it is Infusionsoft, honestly. They do a really good job with their testing. I'm harsh on Keep. I'm harsh on Infusionsoft, Keep. But I give credit. I'm objective, everybody. I give credit. They do a good job with that. So anyways, when you're doing your contact throughput and you're testing it, it's also going to expose if you like the tool or not. Okay, so there's so many benefits to just kind of like babysitting these early automations. And I guess I'm not even saying automations, even tools. When you first use a tool, babysit that tool, make sure it's working right. I just got this landing page software. Is it truly capturing leads and sending them to your CRM? Right. So lastly, we talked about templates not working. I said, I give you something that's better than a template. Well, what is that? In one word, it's, well, I guess 2 words. It's leveraged efforts. Okay. Very rarely do I ever start from scratch in practically any area of my business, because I have a successful track record where I can pull from works of the past and simply just update it to my current need. I'm always repurposing and leveraging my efforts of the past. And you should expect to operate the same way as your business grows and as you get that list of things that are working. So instead of buying or downloading someone else's templates, you have your own. You say, hey, look, let's take that follow-up that we did for that one campaign, clone that, we'll update the email copy, and I just want to add a couple more steps. Right? Leveraging your efforts of the past on automated processes that have proven to work, it's going to minimize any new variables being introduced that could pose holes. And the variables that it does introduce, that they will not be catastrophic. Right? And successful business is not a business that is always reinventing processes. They're leveraging and improving existing process. Okay. So if you're just getting started out, you don't have that library of results. But if not, you do have that library. Pull from what's worked in the past. Do not start from scratch. If you find yourself starting from scratch all the time, you're just that much closer to being inefficient and ineffective. Right? Like, you should not. I can't remember the last time I didn't say, hey, I need to do something. Go find file, clone, start from there. And in fact, I'm so templated in my approach. A lot of times I'm thinking of creating templates, whether it's a Google Doc, whatever. I use Notion. Notion is really good, everybody. Notion.so. Notion is really good for creating templates for different types of documents. So if you find a document that really worked well and you're like, hey, I want to do that same thing, you could easily turn it into a template and store it as and easily access it and pre-populate a page from that note. So I'm always looking at tools that help me leverage my efforts and improve my workflow. And I'm saying all this to let you know that it is possible to have a fully automated system helping you operate your business. But there's a process to get it in place. That's what I've outlined in this episode. There is no one greater than me that has experienced and wants you to experience what it feels like to have an automated system working for you. It's no greater feeling in the world, honestly, in business, I'll say, aside from like making more money than you set out to do, right? Like that feels good, especially if it's purposeful. Oh my goodness, right? But the ease and peace of mind that you have when you know the system is working for you is so empowering. And that's what I want you all to feel. That's my driver in recording today, recording this episode today. That's my driver. I have you in mind. I want you to experience what I've experienced. Because once you get it, once you have that once you've experienced results of an automated system, it's less tempting to do things the wrong way. It's just like, oh my gosh, this is great. Let's just keep doing this. Right. So most of the time when you see people just trying any and everything, they haven't gotten results. They haven't tasted of the results pie. They haven't had a slice. They've just heard of it. And maybe they don't like the smell of it, but they haven't tasted it. So if you want to, I know we were talking about automated processes, but I just want to make sure you all know I do have a masterclass that you can attend that goes through all of the systems required in your business that are at play for every industry and how to automate them. Okay. So you can access that training at any time to get a little more insight on what could this look like, right? You automating your entire business. That's at automationbridge.com/webinar. Easy for you to go to. Okay. So with that being said, who needs to hear this? Who needs to hear this one? Who's that person? You know what? I have so many people who I know live and die literally die in business by the set it and forget it. Who needs to hear this? I think there's a lot of consultants we need to put on notice in that Facebook group that you're part of. Who's that person that keeps asking questions that seems to always skip steps? Like it looks like they're searching for the golden answer. That person, share it with them. Share it with that friend who you just can't seem to get them to understand. No, that's not what automation is. Stop buying products. Stop buying funnels. Right? Send this to them. Help them out. Seriously. And just let them know, hey, thank me later. I just saved you a ton of frustration and money and time. So whoever that person is that you've identified, share it with them. And if you're new and you have listened to this entire podcast and you've listened to this podcast episode in its entirety and you like what you hear, now is the time. This is my invitation. Now is when you hit the subscribe button. Now is when you hit the 5-star rating, and now is when you leave the review. I appreciate you in advance for doing so. All episodes and show notes, everything that I mentioned, if I mentioned a tool or a resource, it'll all be in the show notes and for every episode. And it's available at automationbridge.com/podcast. And as always, until next episode, automate responsibly, my friend.